would start with that one. That one is just crazy. I don't think we're
Yes,
live.
I got
Yeah.
it right here.
All right, cool. I don't know. I don't think we're live yet. I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right.
I see a commercial.
Oh, okay. I guess we're
I'm on the
live.
video.
Oh, you are? Okay. Okay, cool. I know I'm oh, everybody, I guess we're live. Hello,
We are live.
everyone. This is episode 50 of the Lost and Found Ben. I am your co-host, SMQ, and
And Chick, I could hear our voices a little bit there, and my voice seems to be very loud, so I'm sitting back a little bit, like it was kind of going like kind of
what's that?
overdriving. So hopefully it's not hurting your ears, everybody that's here.
Is that better?
Let me check. Let me turn on the volume here. Yeah, that sounds better.
All right,
Okay.
awesome. Cool, cool. So, so it's episode 50. So we're closing in on a year, everyone. And I just want to, everybody in the chat, I just want to thank everyone, all of our regulars for being in here. And, I just want to thank, Chick, obviously for making this an awesome show. And, you're really a great co-host and indispensable. And just thank you for being there. And I want to thank everyone, that we're coming up on a year here. Just thank everybody for being a part of this and making it what it is. And I'm just seeing some names I see all the time, like the reader, Lenny, obviously, Buster. Thank you so much. You've really helped us out, Mike. Mazeroth, thank you. And there's just many more we see all the time here, like Dead GBK, and just a lot of people. Eric, thank you. I see in here all the time. Just everybody, thanks. So anyway, let's get to it. So massive soft disclosure about the moon, Mars, and geoengineering. So last week I was doing a talk, and Julie, someone who's relatively new to the station, brought up this idea that there's no way that what we were talking about in terms of the CIA. Hey, what's up, Jim? Hey, Tammy, how are you? That there was no way that this kind of information is just simply out there. And I was bringing up to Julie that yes, I do believe that they let information out there like this all the time. And the reason why they let information out like this all the time is it's twofold. One, they know they're not going to get a reaction. And right now, I left links for everybody from quote unquote mainstream or credible sources, so no one will argue with you. I think we have Business Insider, Forbes, and PBS among our sources. I decided to not use the inflammatory language, so I went with geoengineering rather than chemtrailing. And then I also went with other non-inflammatory language because it's the language is how it's able to mask itself from, I think, a lot of the conspiracy community. And oftentimes they're telling you all these things that we think are conspiracies, and they're not. They're not conspiracies. And I don't know where the disconnect goes with a lot of these videos because oftentimes I'm an avid YouTuber, and I'll probably listen to videos 3 or 4 hours a day, and oftentimes I'll hear things on YouTube, and the way it's presented as if it's a conspiracy, and it's not. A lot of these things are not they're simply telling you, but they're telling you in a language you may not be familiar with. And again, it goes back to the power of that language that we talk about. And language in itself is incredibly important. And again, with the CIA documents that Buster's provided, it shows once again that indeed language may be the actual building blocks from how existence springs forth from our consciousness. Because I decided to leave the Gateway CIA FOIA request inside here, so everyone can go back to what Chick and I are obviously going to reference, and we talk with a live chat and everybody. It's out there and it's real, and it's so that was my point of this episode, is laying out there to everyone all of these things are out there. A lot of these things. I opened up with PBS because it's the most provocative, obviously, Chick. This is literally the title of the article, Chick. If this space study is right, humans have never left Earth's atmosphere. Now, what makes that important is almost tenfold. And obviously, it partially dissipates the power of us saying we never went to the moon, and it dissipates the power of flat earthers, and it does all kinds of other things. What do you think, Chick?
I think that is an avenue for, at least where I'm coming from, for really pertinent information to be released, but to be kind of ignored. And usually, I wouldn't see it in kind of a way like the FOIA documents. Usually, it's kind of like a hidden in plain sight kind of thing. And usually, it's people that have more information than we have, whoever they may be, putting things out in plain sight and not telling us like if their intentions are good or bad, but just kind of if you are apathetic and just kind of accept it, that's basically enough consent
Mhm.
for them on a spiritual level to do whatever it is that they're doing. So I don't think that it's impossible at all for them to just blatantly put out something that is either mostly true or all true, or at least the important parts are true. Um, because when they put it out there, like in a spiritual sense, they say, hey, we put it out there for public release. You know, if the public ignored it, or if they read it and didn't believe it, or if they just don't care, that counts. Like, we didn't hide it, it's out there. I don't know why that is how it is, but at least, especially in the Sagittarius arm, realities, it used to be a lot like that. There would be all kinds of crazy and occult things just put out there, just like in advertisements, or just like, you know, in fashion designs, like as part of logos, or all kinds of crazy things like that. And people would just think, oh, that's just a logo, and just walk past it. Like, nobody would ever question, what is it? What are you looking at?
Yeah, and I think that talks to, are you able can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me, Chick?
I can hear you. Can
Okay,
everyone
cool.
hear
Yep,
SNQ
awesome.
in
So,
chat?
yeah, I heard a little buzz, but it went away just now. So, I know that Google is working to this week to get rid of Google Plus sometime soon here, so I don't know. But anyway, the point is, that's a good point, about what you just said about Sagittarius, and this is ultimately a Mandela effect video as well, and this is part of my idea of leveling up. A lot of these things that would probably not be as in your face now, they would have to be either hidden or they would be put in a logo or embedded in a logo, and you would have to really know what you're talking about or really know what to look for. Back in Sagittarius, here in Orion or whatever dimension that you want to call it, whatever language it is that makes you feel comfortable, wherever we're at now, Chick, it's definitely different and it's in your face. They don't mind putting articles out like this, literally saying that science has been wrong and we didn't look at the data, since I think it was the early 90s or something like
Yeah,
that.
they
These
left the
different
data sitting around since like 95 or 96 and just didn't look at it, is what they said in the article. My
yeah.
gosh.
And this, like, if you read just this one paragraph, they're quite frank. It says here, now a new study from space physics redefines the boundaries of our planet based on overlooked data collected at the end of the last millennium. The report concludes that the edges of the atmosphere actually exceeds more than 391,000 miles from the planet's surface, about twice as far from our moon. Now, if you remember, Chick, that's a Mandela effect from just a couple of weeks ago when they were saying it barely touches the moon, but only whenever it rotates just right. I remember that specifically from just a couple of weeks ago. Now it's twice as far out as our moon.
But yes, I know, and I wonder if that has to do with the planet like being smaller and smaller. Our plane, I'm not picking a side in that debate, but
That's
the
right.
Earth being smaller and smaller than ever before, because with the last few geo shifts, it's becoming really ridiculous. Like, even the globes and things like you'll see on television, like when they're doing the weather, like on news stations and stuff, you can see almost all of the countries, or like all of the continents, like on one side, and then on the other side is just ocean and Hawaii
Yeah. Yeah,
of the world.
absolutely. You've got a great point about there. And if you notice, it's always three Earths and they're very small. It's a very subtle change, but it's everywhere right now. Have you noticed that?
Yes, very, and I don't know how, unless there are people who are here have always been here, how they wouldn't notice the difference of just how small it's all getting. Because I think people from the huge Sagittarius Earth arms are feeling very cramped right now and a little bit
Hmm.
worried. Like, why is it getting so much smaller, so much quicker? And
Hmm.
I talked to someone the other day who went back to the fundamental question: is it changing, or are we moving? And I think that we're moving because I flip flop from different places from time to time. And I don't think the earth is like going in and out like an accordion just to troll me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think that it is that we are moving around. But I had no idea that they got this small. And I'm starting to wonder how much smaller they're going to be. Like when we get to the Pangea stage, when all the countries are touching together, like, is it just going to be this tiny little, 10,000 mile circumference Earth? Are we going to be just crunched into this little thing?
Right, and that's the point that I'm making about, or that you're making brilliantly about these topics, is that they are out there. I've the two that I left in there about, from Business Insider, talking about the geoengineering, which is chemtrailing. What you can this at this point, it's semantics, right? It says here's a line from Business Insider. This is not some headline from, quote unquote, and these I consider my brethren conspiracy YouTubers. And I say that not to look down, I say it as like my peers. Harvard scientists will soon send chemicals into the atmosphere to test whether a last ditch planet hacking plan could keep Earth habitable. So, you know, this sounds like straight up, fear mongering, and something that oftentimes our demographic would be accused of, right? And it's no, this is Business Insider. This is as mainstream as Forbes or PBS or anything else, and they're putting it out there, and that's yet another soft disclosure. So everyone that is going on and on about chemtrails, including me, I send pictures of it all the time, everywhere. Whenever I'm getting bombed, I'll take a picture of the sky and send it out, and it's true. They're saying, yeah, yeah, we're going to do it. We're sending chemicals into the higher points of the atmosphere, and these particulates are going to be dropping on your head. The only thing right now, it's just going to take a Mandela shift, is for them to say, okay, we've been doing it the whole time. We were just ramping it up, or it'll be something like that, chick. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I'm thinking that there's reasons, I think, other than trying to control the climate or mess with the climate or whatever it is that's going on. Because I think when you're in the Mandela effect community, especially the geo Mandela effect community, like the maps and everything like that, you see the differences from Earth to Earth to Earth. There's no way to gain control over that. Like if this is happening to everybody, especially, but they don't realize it, or whether it's just happening to us, um, it's not something that you can control. There's going to be hotter Earths and colder Earths and bigger Earths and smaller Earths and Earths with 2 or 3 suns and Earths with seemingly more than one moon, or moons doing whatever they want, or like really crazy stuff. So I wonder if the particulates that are being put in the atmosphere are conductive. I wonder if it's something to do with um, maybe not exactly 5G, but along the lines of it. Are there broadcast signals that need conductive, metal type material in the air so that it can travel on the lower levels? Because usually they would fire things higher up. They would fire things into the ionosphere, etc., to try and mess with the clouds or make it rain or not rain, or whatever other things they were doing. HARP project and other things along those lines. And I'm sure it goes much deeper than rain or rainfall. But I think on the lower levels, where it's close to us, like down on the ground, perhaps it's difficult to make the signals travel. Maybe because there are so many buildings and so many things, especially in cities, that there has to be a way to. I'm trying to figure out exactly why and what they're trying to do, because this is obviously a massive part of the planetary budget to spray this stuff all the time, day in, day out, for decades on end. Like, how much does that even cost? It has to be a huge part of what's going on in the modern day world in secret projects. And we're not even privy to what it's really about. And I'm sure a big load of your paycheck is being spent on it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that the the program or programs, whatever they are, they could be designed. And again, if assuming the government has accepted somewhere 35 years on, that we'll find out that the Mandela effect is indeed a naturally occurring event, or the Mandela effect is something man-made, whatever it is. Um, until we get that kind of disclosure, I like that idea of somehow this may link all of the all of the versions of reality together. And by doing this somehow, because you've got to remember, most of the documentation we have so far, including some of the CIA documents I haven't released yet, but what we have in terms of the gateway process and psychotronics, everything keeps leaning back towards vibration. It leans back towards, frequency, sound, tone, harmonics, all of those things, cymatics, all of those things I know to be true. And if those particulates can somehow either change in terms of our perception or actually change the way in which the harmonics of no matter where you're at in terms of Mandela shifts, whether we shift to a smaller planet or a larger planet, perhaps the particulates, obviously this is me speculating, but perhaps the particulates have something to do with altering the harmonics of existence and the harmonics of the way in which the planet reacts with us and we will react with the planet. So and another quick point I wanted to make is if you look at that second geoengineering article from Business Insider, it actually starts. This is how it starts, just like a fiction novel. It's 2055. A row of airplanes streak across the sky. They're barely visible because they're flying far above the usual traffic of jetliners, transport balloons, and delivery drones. And my point about that is obviously to make a joke about the way in which they're delivering the information to us in Business Insider. However, a more serious point is being made here is it begins with fiction. And that's the point I'm trying to make about language and fiction and our understanding. The real battle is actually in language because language is the way in which we react and understand our environment. It's the way in which we can communicate with one another to co-create the reality that we live in. And it begins with language. And the reason why is it so important for a document, right? Like a document is so important. Why are you and I talking about these articles? It's because language in these articles are reshaping right now. Everyone that's listening to this episode, it's reshaping the way that you see your reality. We now know that it's whether people who wait for permission or people like you and I, Chick, and everyone in the chat, we don't wait for permission. All this does is prove that we were right in terms of like the PBS article about the Earth's atmosphere. That this stuff is very, very strange. But for people who for something they have a switch in them where they're waiting for permission, this gives them permission to sort of go out of their safe space, so to speak. But it does begin with language, and they're actually starting to write these articles so people can get in that frame of mind. They're using the tool of fiction. So I just wanted to put that out there,
Well,
and the documents themselves, they're
sorry, just as you were saying that, I was wondering if they're using fiction to bring it into reality, as you've often spoken about.
absolutely, absolutely, exactly. That's exactly my point. Is that if you can capture something, if you can capture that part of this untapped into consciousness or of the muse or whatever you want to call it, if they can seize that first, then they control that ground, so to speak. And then they can deliver it to us however they want. That's the same thing about space. Everything we know about space right up to this PBS article. That's how much power they have. Everything you know about space, you don't know personally. Not one person I'm talking to, not even people in NASA or the space program, because it's so compartmentalized. If anyone's ever been part of a large corporation, you know that all you work on is one particular project, and that's all you work on, and then you become an expert at it. And the corporation works on thousands of other projects. I'm just talking about like GE or Microsoft or wherever it may be. And you simply are, and that's how they were able to keep the atomic bomb. When people say, "Oh, someone would talk," no one would talk. Nobody knows. That's why no one's talking, because they don't know. And yes, fiction is what brings things into our reality, because we have to be able to have the ability to imagine it first, and that's what they're doing. They're imagining things for us.
It kind of like makes me think of like all the like science articles that we've looked at over the year,
Hmm.
and how some of them are so ludicrous, and they say scientists think something could be happening or might be happening or could be happening, and it's never definite, it's never scientific. It is more bordering on the line of fiction. It's more like, well, perhaps, and it could be, and it's in an entirely different kind of section of language or section of thought than what you would expect. You would expect, like, from the scientific community, that it would be in the fourth stage of an idea, where it's already realized, it's already physical, material, proven, studied, etc. But they're always back in the first stage of an idea, where it's just popped out of, somewhere, and you're wondering, is it possible and could it be? And that they seem to stay there all the time. And I wonder if that has something to do with this reality. Because then all those people read those scientific journals and they say, oh, well, it's, the scientists think it could be, so maybe it could be. And that kind of pushes an energy towards it.
Interesting. That's an interesting, yeah, that's a great way to think about that. It's redirecting the energy. So no matter what, you're in a constant state of refocusing on something in terms of the way in which our reality works. Because if you're someone, and science is kind of your thing, this had to have been, well, one, the geoengineering has got to be troubling because I know somewhere in the back of everyone's mind who debunks chemtrailing, they have to be kind of, because this was as late 2018 when Business Insider was talking about this. So they have to be, it's got to be at least a little bit uncomfortable. But like you said, for someone who has been directing their energy about the way in which space is and all of these things, it's got to bother them that, how is all this information? I mean, look at it this way. Science is so powerful now, it no longer has to rely on the could be or maybe. They can actually just jerk your attention to saying, yeah, you know what? The moon is inside Earth's atmosphere. We'll take a big part of the canon that is the flat Earth canon, and we're gonna just, you know what? We're gonna cop to it. We did it. Yep, it's inside Earth's atmosphere, and we'll be so in your face about it that we're gonna title it from an organization that is so esteemed in the United States, which is PBS, public broadcasting, that we're going to put it in your face saying, technically, humans really have never, they've never left Earth's atmosphere, technically speaking. And that's how it begins. And that's the grooming process. That's the process from which, we kind of move that Overton window. We've just bumped it. You've just watched how that works. They've just bumped it back over. And this is a big win for a lot of people. And again, that's what I'm talking about, leveling up, because I don't know. And I'd like to get your idea on this. Is this a Mandela shift, or is this seeding some sort of, linguistic, weird political battle? What are your thoughts? Because I'm still in the camp of this could be very much, an ME shift. And this Earth, yeah, we had a major shift a few weeks back, and this Earth and this moon might be a lot closer. What are your thoughts?
I think the whole thing, to me, anyway, is a Mandela effect. I don't think that our scientists would ever have said this, would have gone along with this, would have accepted this. Like, if they said on the Sagittarius arm, Earth, the moon is inside the atmosphere, the scientific journals would have all freaked out. They would have said, why did you not look at this research 20 years ago or 25 years ago, whenever you got it back in the 90s? And how dare you, let us go on for years and years reporting something that there's contrary evidence about? It would have been an absolute freak out. And there would have been a big section of scientists that would not believe it, because they based their entire research about the way it was portrayed to us and how it was understood, and they would try and fight it and say, no, it's not true, look at my research. And it would not have been taken the way it's been taken here. Whereas here in the Orion arm, everything's so strange socially because they have a totally different way of dealing with things socially. It's like less emotional, or it's less passionate and involved. It seems to be very much more casual in a lot of respects. And the scientists here are just fine with it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. When they base some of them base their lives on how space and the moon and everything was portrayed before, and space travel especially. If you come back to them and say, well, actually, we never did space travel, really, because we never got out of the atmosphere, that blows the entire, section of science that thought that we had gone to space out of the water, and nobody's upset in the least.
Exactly. And exactly. And that's a good point. Why aren't scientists out there just raging? Because they've had to fight that point. And what about what is it, the Van Allen belt? Where does that leave that argument? Is that argument just in this version that we've shifted to? Does it just poof and it's gone? There's no worry about the Van Allen, because my understanding was the Van Allen belts were well outside of Earth's atmosphere. So then where does the math go with that? Are the Van Allen belts within Earth's atmosphere now? Because if they are, then I don't know. I don't understand how it works, right? I'm confused now. I'm falling over myself. You know, you know, if they're outside of it, so is the moon within the Van Allen belts? And then two, with the other article with Mars talking about diverting your energy like you were talking about, suddenly we're whiplashed with this idea as they just at the same time roughly that they're introducing the idea that the earth is with or the moon is within Earth's atmosphere. We get the whiplash that they're finding the potential for life on Mars. That's the other article that I left in there. And it's like just this, or it could have been habitable at one time. Okay. Whatever. And I think there are I need to read that other article. I read this article saying, in its past, there was life on Mars. So that could go to the idea that there was a devastating whatever, I don't know if it was another civilization and some of it broke off and landed on Earth, and Earth was in the Goldilocks idea, and that's how we rose as a civilization. I know that's one of the many, many, many crazy ideas that science has come up with, but how we've evolved, because heaven forbid there be something beyond reductive materialism. But anyway, the point is the article is whiplash. It gives you whiplash about Mars, and suddenly it's about Mars, and it's, then you get a whiplash again that we're going back to the moon. Maybe one of the reasons why we're going back to the moon, I just thought of this, is because we had a Mandela effect shift. The moon is within the atmosphere. So that means we can actually really go to the moon now. And we couldn't because we shifted before. And we actually couldn't go. And we never went back because there was Van Allen belts. There was the fact that our atmosphere, you had to actually go out into, outer space. And now, no, you don't have to do that technically. I mean, shoot, technically, we could now build our sky elevator to the moon if you really think about it.
Well, that would at least put the moon arguments into some more likely perspective. Because I mean, I was saying the whole time on the Sagittarius arm, if we've been there way back when in the 60s, why isn't it covered in buildings? Why haven't we done something with it? And there were way less moon missions on the timeline I was from. They only did 3, and then they never bothered going back again ever. Mm-hmm. And then I came suddenly to the Orion arm, and it's like, oh no, we did all these different moon missions, all these different Apollos, and all this different stuff. And at that time, I was still wondering, like, my gosh, is this time travel? Like, did they write a whole bunch of nonsense into history to say that they did all these, moon expeditions that they never did? Like, what's going on? And no, I don't know. I think that maybe because the Earth is smaller and the moon is closer, they possibly could have. Maybe they knew the whole time that it was in the atmosphere in Orion, and therefore it wasn't a problem for them to go there. But it's very confusing to me on the organic versus holographic principle of exactly what is our atmosphere here, because this place is made of light, according to according to the experts here. This is a holographic reality. Mm-hmm. It's not a an organic based reality. So when you're talking about the outside of our atmosphere, maybe they're not talking about very thin oxygen. Maybe they're talking about, well, that's where the light kind of phases out. That's as far as it really goes, or as far as we can go in it.
All right, I'm going to float something to you insane, okay? And I hope I don't lose all credibility with this audience and you and Buster, Angelia, everybody on the crew. How about this? What if, according to the Gateway document, all of this we're co-creating collectively as a consciousness inside of this hologram, okay? And it's seeded from an individual consciousness, and then it's seeded from all the other consciousnesses, and they all come together and they make this reality. What if I can't believe I'm going to say, what if the flat earthers, they had made such a move and such a vibrational change in this reality that the hologram had to actually acquiesce and move a bit to that and to preempt this movement, and thus that could be the crackdown to that crowd. They know this because you can click out and you can see, I would imagine, these non-corporeal intelligent life forms, by the way, we're not alone. That was another soft disclosure from that CIA document. If we interact with that, they're saying, look, your hologram that's made up by, octaves and frequencies, sound, essentially, cymatics. It's being changed because you have a large group of people who refuse to co-create with you. They've branched off and they're doing this FE thing. And it's actually changing the vibrational frequency of this existence. And you have lost ground. You have lost ground too, because, what if politics is nothing like we think it is? And politics has to do with vibrational frequency at a very, 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 very deep level of consciousness. And everything that we see around us is all about just moving that, sort of like what you're talking about with that energy. And what if they've said you've lost this ground, you have to cede this ground now? It's too big. And to cauterize the wound, you need to come out hard and fast and just get it over with, tear off the Band-Aid and say, look, the moon is in Earth's atmosphere. And to stop the bleeding, to stop the damage, just go out there, admit it, get it over with. Let's move on. What do you think? Is that too far out there?
I don't think anything is too far out there with the kind of things that we've seen in this situation and the kind of disclosures that we've seen. I mean, even somebody who's in our audience right now who's like completely skeptic about the documents, who's completely skeptic about, they can see that the sun is white. They can see that they're not where they grew up. They can see something is really, really wildly, out of order here, at least from our perspective. And like I mentioned, socially, everything is so different. It'd be very difficult for someone that's not from here not to notice that they are here. I think that it's very possible if there were a whole bunch of people who ended up here who are very, very passionately flat Earth, if it does in fact kind of get shaped by the people who are conscious in this hologram, and there's a whole bunch of them and it's the most important thing to them, it could actually be making big dents in whatever was going on here. And while people might say, oh, you can't change, what's physical, that's like what I said before, this is not a physical place, really. This place is made of light. This is a holographic place. This is what our experts, what our intelligence agencies are saying. And they wouldn't waste their time and money on it if it didn't have any merit or if they couldn't prove it. Because they had to prove it to hardline generals that couldn't care less, that just wanted to know, is this useful for killing people or not? Like, they're not spiritual. They're not worrying about getting to the next level of spirituality. They're worried about being on the cutting edge of warfare. So to me, when it comes from those people, yes, I have to look at it and say, yeah, it has merit because those people do not mess around. They don't care about the kind of things that we care about.
And that's another great point that a lot of people are I think they're conflating a lot of things. A lot of people who are in this chat, or a lot of people that have come here, they're very much into spirituality, regardless of what it is. And by the way, I just want to just shout out to Teresa Lynch. Yes, I would be. I saw you. I think you're following me on Twitter, but reach out to me on Twitter. I'd be very, very interested in talking with you. And Eileen, she said something very important too, is that we could, through one mass decision, probably with our intention, move this reality in a very serious way. I think it was the rice. They took three things of bits of rice and they put them into cups or something. And
yes.
Right. So it showed intention, even just through the word. It changes reality. And like you said, they've already admitted it. It is holographic. It's light. All of it is light. And at the quantum level, it shows. Quantum entanglement shows that we are entangled. Absolutely. And just the fact that, what if that is the case? They had to cede this ground because the movement was so big and belligerent in a good way, meaning, no, we're not backing down. No, we just will not back down. And I meant that in the best possible way. I'm not hostile at all. But I'm just thinking to myself how amazing that would be. And that would actually further the CIA document. And it's exactly what, like you're saying, I'll get back to the conflation thing. People are conflating that the CIA actually cares about spiritual ascension. And perhaps there are factions within the CIA that are into that, but you're right. I think the hardcore, hard-nosed, a war, like, I'm here to do one job and one job only, destroy. And for people who are warriors and are in the warrior state of mind, that's what they're there. That's what they want, and to maintain dominance and control. And that's why releasing that document is there's no threat whatsoever, because one, they probably don't care about spiritual ascension, and two, the technology is so beyond. I can only imagine. That's what frightens me, chick, is that I'm reading this going, this is legit, and they're 35 to 50 years beyond this, and they know, and they don't care. They don't care. They don't care that we know. And that's just it. There's no big secret. Read Business Insider, read Forbes, read PBS. In this version of reality, they don't care if you know. There is no more conspiracies, guys. Conspiracies are gone. They're telling you straight up the moon is in Earth's atmosphere. They're telling you straight up we are geoengineering. The only thing that you've got to do is use their language. If you just switch to their language, you'll immediately, like, the static that you're getting and your cymatic frequency in your life will suddenly clear up immediately. And that's just some friendly advice to people who are listening to this right now. I'm just giving you friendly advice. It all begins with language. So that's all I got to say for that.
For sure. They don't care if we, what we find out about here. And I wonder if that has to do with going back again to how things are socially here. I have not met one person that's from these kind of Orion type realities that's in that kind of mindset and vibe, and that's their energy, and that's their them, that like really would go any distance with this, like with the information that's out there. And maybe those people are out there and I just haven't met them. But that curiosity and that kind of going outside of the regular lines doesn't usually exist in a lot of the public in places like these. I don't know why. It's just an observation I'm making. So maybe there is no danger in putting it out there because the people who are from here are not going to do anything with it. And they certainly weren't expecting people like us to show up here. I mean, you're not really going to safeguard and say, well, actually, the truth is there's every kind of version of Earth out there imaginable, like a huge game of war games, like running out every single scenario. And a whole bunch of people, like they're just their souls only, are going to land into my Earth, coming with totally different perspectives and totally different energy, coming from a different evolutionary path of human being, where they had different brains, they had different everything growing up. And they're going to take this information and use it with the information that they had from their previous lives in the other part of reality. Like, nobody would ever think that would ever be an issue, so you'd never safeguard against that.
And you know what's beautiful about all this? This is Mandela effect is what we're talking about. Every bit of these articles, that's what I meant about that leveling up, and that's not a slide, because I think the other channels are absolutely necessary for people, the very few like you're talking about, that are curious and are awake and know what's going on. They need an entry point to understand, because this is a lot to take. And I think I'm really happy to be part of those, folks that picked it up and have been at it for a couple of years. You and I, other people, even in the chat right now, that have been at it for a couple of years. So when people are new and coming into this community, you're not alone. One, and two, yeah, it's weird. It's very strange, and we're all dealing with this together. But I liked, the one point about the Earth, getting smaller and the geo shifts. I saw a while back, Mazeroth said in the chat that it could be that we're being sucked through a black hole, and when that happens, everything shrinks. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept, a bit nihilistic and a bit frightening, but I think that was an interesting idea and an interesting concept, because ultimately no one really knows what's on the other end of a black hole. It's sort of like everything else about science. It's kind of fiction. Most of it is what it seems to be, because I mean, heck, if you can take the moon in and out of Earth's atmosphere, I think you can pretty much do anything in this reality.
That's true. And I was going to say, like, I think in our own reality, or our old reality rather, that would be scary, and it would be like, oh, well, that's why the Earths are getting smaller, and that's why the information is breaking apart at integral levels and getting very random altogether. But in this current reality here, because I was just researching it the other day, they actually spotted white holes in 2012. So it's not even
Oh,
theoretical in this world right now, or unless we've shifted again this morning. At least in the Earth we were in yesterday, they had spotted white holes in 2012 for real. So therefore, that's the other end of a black hole. Like in the Orion arm, it was theoretical that the other, well, I suppose they had some kind of evidence, but now they had really hardcore evidence that all the light gets sucked into a black hole and then everything comes out the other end in a white hole and it spits out light and everything else.
interesting. So yeah, so all of it is changing. It's constantly changing, constantly moving, constantly flowing. Hey everybody, just to remind you too, we do have super chats to help us out. That would be great. Just going to throw that out there for you. You see that little sign there? It's all symbols and signs, right? That's what we ought to talk about sometimes is the symbols and see if some symbols have been changing. That would be kind of interesting. All right, so Mazaroth talking about that saying, basically, we're in the wormhole. Space-time accelerates as you approach the speed of light, and the God particles were close to the Big Bang because they cause a big crunch. Interesting. Well, certainly, I think that, and Teresa and everybody's talking about it in the chat that it is all. See, I think it's picking up, and I think it's picking up the shifts. And obviously, the residue is so massive at this point. I mean, I can, it's gotten so strange, Chick. I can almost make up something, type it into Google, and there will be an article by a journal or something that's esteemed, and it will have a subject on it. I swear I could just make up fiction, and it'll be there.
It'll
I
be
tell,
considered somewhere for sure.
It's so bizarre and so strange, and it's just so I don't know. But I do think that something was seeded or something was given back with this announcement of the Earth being in the atmosphere. And I watched someone's video earlier this morning, and I enjoyed it because I think he was a Mead, and I don't think he knew it. And it was just a personal channel, um, but he was angry that people weren't, and I feel like reaching out to the guy. He was angry that people weren't more upset about the moon being in Earth's atmosphere. And I didn't look at a lot of his other material, but it seemed as if this was a genuine shock to him. So I don't know. I I know there are others out there, and they're without a community and a group and sort of people to surround them to kind of let them know what's going on. So maybe I'll reach out to this guy. But there are people out there, and they're getting on YouTube slowly. But I think it's more or less like you said. We may be, I've always said 1 to 2%. Maybe it may be somewhere around there. I don't know. Everybody also too for some show stuff. If you could give us that thumbs up, that would help out a lot in getting the word out. We've been getting a lot of really good thumbs up lately, and I think that's been helping the show get out there. So, anyway, but I'm still getting through that Psychotronic thing. Did you did you get a chance to take a look at that at all?
I was able to listen to part of about the psychotronic on the video that you did on it, but I didn't
Mhm.
get a chance to look at like any articles or to read up on it.
Oh my gosh. One of the more interesting things that I didn't even think about Pythagoras. You've got is the triangle and the pyramid, and it's considered, very, very significant to Pythagoras. And the idea about Pythagoras is that he's like a descendant of Apollo or something, or there's like the rumor of that. So I thought I'd throw that out there while we're talking about the psychotronic universe. But I think I've been reading this enough that I think I can make that bridge from there being a completely holographic world in existence to the psychotronic ideas that are put forth inside of this particular document. And I'll be doing that in part 2 and 3. But I think all of this is falling together nicely, and it's very interesting, and it makes sense. I think all of these are Mandela shifts. I think there's still a version of existence where the moon is outside of Earth's atmosphere, and I think there's a version of reality you know that they're not geoengineering, not chemtrailing, but geoengineering, right?
I wonder. I wonder what they're doing. I know they were spraying on the Sagittarius Earth, but I don't know if they were spraying the same stuff or for the same reasons.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing or why they're doing it. I think it has to do with something with our perception of reality or the harmonics of this particular reality, I think. Because I sent out that tweet, that door, it looked like it was almost made of rubber, and that was pretty crazy.
Yes. I'm just, oh, sorry. I just had a point there and it just went out of my mind right at this moment. I hate when that happens.
I hate when that happens. What about the mind reading, the V2K? We had that article in there. That's a whole thing that you sent out. I looked that up and I was able to find an article on this instantly where they have, who was that by? Was that Forbes? Yeah, that's in Forbes. All right, everybody. In case you don't know and you haven't looked in the description, it says, a chick found it, and it was not in a form, a form, not in an article form, and I wanted to drop that into an article form. But in Forbes, it has here. It says you can talk to MIT's mind reading headset without ever opening your mouth, and it's exactly the same technology that you were talking about. So again, this is a form of soft disclosure. It may not be V2K, but they're admitting that they can project voices and signals and all kinds of things straight into your mind, and it sounds like you're right in there, and that voice is right in your head. So there you go. It's out there. It's disclosed. It's done. That's it.
It's true. And the other thing was like he was like using his inner dialogue to control the television. It kind of looked like a game console situation. Like he was scrolling down a list and choosing things with this apparatus like on his face, listening to his inner voice speaking and giving commands. And I know that they've talked for a long time, especially in mind control circles and stuff like that, about broadcasting to you and thinking that it's your own voice or a voice within you when it's not. But I was more like taken aback or just like insulted by the thought of listening to your inner dialogue and being able to possibly, have transcripts of that. And I'm just like, I was hoping that was science fiction, but they've disclosed now that this technology is out there and you can use it to control your televisions and things like that. So it's literally in the realm of careful what you think, wrong think, if it can be heard, like be careful what you're saying inside your own mind. Like that privacy is gone then.
So do you think in words?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So you literally have like a dialogue in your head?
Yeah, so like, and with the unconscious part of the mind, whether it's conscious but it's non-linguistic, that comes before the words. So I mean, there's communication on that level where it's instantaneous and wordless because words slow down those signals. When before we learn to speak, we can make the connections a lot faster. Even though obviously being very young, it's that has its problems as well. But once you learn words, it's like a secondary way of putting thoughts together that is slower, but it's the most efficient for obviously communicating it to other people. So I'll bounce between the different modes of modalities of thought and how to put them together.
Hmm. So I guess once again, I seem like a shill for the power of now. I used to think a little bit in words, but I didn't often. But since I've used the power of now, I don't think in my head anymore. I don't use language. I don't know how it is I interact, and I don't use any internal dialogue anymore whatsoever. None of it. Um, and if I do, because of the training from the power of now, it goes away immediately. I know I'm doing it, and I know it's the ego. And what I do is I just, it's gone, and that's pretty much how I don't think in dialogue any and oh, interesting.
Well, the conscious mind will often, like the frontal part of the mind, the part that uses language, will often take on things that it's not actually capable of doing. I'll find often that I try to like process emotions in my in the frontal part of my mind, and it'll give me headaches because it's not capable of doing that. You literally
Mhm.
have to use your heart to process emotions. But there are, situations like that where the linguistic part of the mind will try and take on things that it's not actually capable of doing.
Mm,
But I did do some experiments, and I did talk about it on my channel, where like trying to see what the different parts of the mind were like by using drawing. And I did find that like drawing with my right hand and drawing with my left hand, that the style of drawing is different, and also the way that you proportion things, or are able to see the difference between distance and proportion is different. I found I can draw to scale a lot better with the left hand, and I think with the right hand, I think because that's it seems to be, at least for me, tied more to like linguistic stuff. It's actually not as efficient or proficient.
wow, that's so interesting. I by accident I became semi ambidextrous because I used to skateboard when I was younger, and I had a really bad skateboarding accident, and I broke 3 fingers on my right hand, so, I had to have a bunch of different operations on my fingers, and so I had to learn to write. For the school year, I had to learn to write with my left hand, so I'm kind of, you know, semi-ambidextrous. It's kind of interesting.
I hear you. Do you feel different parts of your brain being activated when you use the different hands?
Um, no, I've never I haven't, nope. What I do is what I don't it just I don't know where it's at. I have no idea what I don't think. I don't, um I know people say, think before you speak. I don't do any of that. I don't do any, because of the power now, I don't do any of those things. Everything is just flowing right through me, and I'm just oftentimes kind of not a vessel in terms of like art, like a vessel, but I know it's still me. Versus whenever if I go into like a fiction mode, or if I go into a creative mode, I understand those modes are very different, and you're tapping into something that's not you, specifically not you. Why it you can tell it's semi magical versus what I'm doing right now. This is absolutely me. However, I don't think, or and I don't I'm just don't. I don't see anything, and I don't think, and I just go. And when I'm driving, or if someone cuts me off, I'll feel the emotion. I can feel it in my chest and my heart if I'm like mad and like or something like that. And I'll feel the emotion sometimes right in the center of my skull, but I won't verbalize it often anymore. I used to verbalize, but I don't do that anymore. It's completely gone.
I hear you. I wonder if that does help with a lot of different processes, because the subconscious mind, as far as I know, is not a worrier. It doesn't like, whereas the conscious or frontal part of the mind is where all the worry and what if and stuff can happen, because it tries to process things that it can't process, and that's why that can end up being such a mess. So it kind of makes sense to, like, in the practice that you were doing, to like skip over that part of cognitive you know discourse, and to go straight to the subconscious, which already has answers for what it wants to do with A, B, and C, but it's non-linguistic, so it doesn't discuss them. So if you access that, then it feels like running on autopilot, but it's probably a more natural way to run. As in, I think that language and the way that we kind of teach the brain right now is based off of a lot of suppositions that don't really make sense, and they're not really the most effective way to use the brain. But hopefully, as we go forward, and we learn more about consciousness, we'll learn how to help it rather than hinder it with
Mhm.
different processes.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and again, I have no affiliation with, Power Now, but yeah, I'm totally, and I think too I can see symbols, like symbology. I see it everywhere now, and I can see it, and what it means and the associations with it. Now, I know a lot of that is from my YouTube training, from, listening to all the conspiracy videos for a couple years now, but I also I can sort, and I was never be able to I could never do that before. Also too, whenever I'm at work and I'm coding now, I don't think about it whatsoever. I just write, and I'm able to just do it now. And I think I've literally rewired my brain completely. So, It's very interesting. But I don't think and the second I start to, I can shut it down immediately because I know I'm doing it.
I hear you. I have had, like, I didn't go that route, but I think I've had a little bit similar to, like, when there was too much trying to process things in the conversational part of the brain, that it really just kind of leads you to confusion, and it leads you to like being overwhelmed and things like that. So I've definitely tried to approach things differently too, but I've just kind of been making it up as I go along. But I do see like how if we rely too much on that, how it can actually be detrimental to problem solving.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right. Um, we're about to run out of time here. That hour, it goes by like 10 minutes. Yeah, Teresa Lynch, please reach out to me on Twitter if you want to get together with your group. Mazaroff, thank you. Buster, obviously, thank you. And everybody else who joined today, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'll be back to the Lizard Ritual tomorrow, normal time on Truth Frequency Radio. Everybody, we've got 30 thumbs up, but we've got almost 80 people watching. If I can get some more thumbs up, that would be really awesome. Anybody listening into the future to help us out with those thumbs up would be really awesome. So, in our closing, you got anything else going on?
Yeah, just that point that we were talking about before about the possibility of going through black holes, and I typed it in the chat too. Was just the one thing that they always said is able to pass through a black hole is light, and in
Hmm,
this reality here, we're made of light, so I actually don't think there's going to be a problem.
interesting. I like that.
So I'm just like, okay, maybe things will get a little bit strange for a while, but if this holographic reality is truly that, then when it comes to light and space, light doesn't actually take up that much space. It can get through a black hole and go out the other end and be a white hole and just be elsewhere in existence. So it might actually just be a transit or a portal way or a gateway.
And that's yeah, and in light can bend and all these other things, and like that's very interesting. That and that would make sense with the hologram because you can sort of take different lights and cross them, and you have a light show. And how you do it is you turn on the light show and the light show suddenly springs to life. And then you can also kind of turn it off, and that could also be part of that, what is it, the electrical universe and the clicking, and it could also be what we see with the Schumann resonance. I mean, all this, it's all coming together. And I think every week we chip at it. How many weeks are in a year? Isn't it 52?
52.
52. So we'll start doing the countdown next week. So it's 1 year, everybody. 1 year for the Lost and Found bin. We're about out of time. Again, I can't stress it enough. Thank you, everybody who is here. Dark Slayer, everybody. I just, Sharkington Gnaw. I saw the reader in here earlier. Pia, thank you. Obviously, Mazaroth. Bling Laden, what's up? Buster, obviously. Who else we got here that Digital Intel, Dark Wolf, obviously. What's up? And who else? We have Helen, Dark Slayer, Dominic. I'm just, if I forget anybody, it's not out of, spite or anything. Lenny, Roger, Eileen, I just, Shi Yun Yun. Thank you for being here with us today. We really, really appreciate it, everybody. So I guess that's it. We're out of here this week. It's it's kind of easy when you've got so many things. And you guys check it out and try to do that trick too. Think of something like fictional, like that's sort of scientifically plausible, and then type it into Google and see what you come up with. That would be an interesting thing to try. Oh, and
Yes.
Mandela Effect comedy. Hello. Perfect. I think that's it, right?
There's so many people in the chat. I like it's we're not snubbing anybody. If we forgot to mention your name, like please don't be upset with us. We're trying to give love to everybody in the chat. So because I know there's always going to be one or two people that we miss or something, but we don't mean to miss you. We love you all the same. And 1 year almost of the Lost and Found bin, and some of you guys have been here for every single episode. Um,
Everyone.
every single one. So that is very, very awesome. That's some wild chipping away that we've done right here.
Yep, absolutely. And again, maybe that's what I need to stop doing is, it's just we're getting in a good way. We have so many people now that are so awesome in the chat because the show's growing and it's growing because I think we do a good job and we all care and we're looking for those things. We're leveling up here. Everything we spoke about today, I believe is a Mandela effect. This was a Mandela effect show. This was not a chemtrail show. This was not a flat earth show. This was about we're showing you these are Mandela effects that are you've just got to look for it, and they're all out there and they're happening all the time. So it's just an untraditional way of looking at it. That's all it is. So all right, everybody, I guess
Oh,
till
one sec.
next week.
They're
What's
asking
that?
for my YouTube channel in the chat, and I'm trying to copy it and just paste it in there just before we sign off.
Cool.
Sorry,
Absolutely.
everybody. Took me a second because my computer's really slow and confused. It didn't come up. Darn it.
No, go
Ah,
ahead. I'll wait. We'll wait. And by the way, anytime you have you want to look for somebody, just type in chick and then Mandela effect. I've done it before. It works on the search. But then again, I go to her channel a lot, so that might be part of my cache memory on my machine. So
yes,
we'll
I'm
just
not sure like if people can find me or not, but
mhm.
hopefully they can. Okay, I posted the link there. Hopefully anyone that wants it can get it through that way. Sorry, guys. And
Perfect.
yes, awesome.
Awesome. So also too, hit us up if you have any kind of articles or anything else. Hit us up on Twitter. Chick and I are both there. Same with Buster. He's there. And that's it. Hit us up. We'll talk to you later and we'll see you next week. Week 51. We're going on our 1 year and maybe we'll do something special. I don't know. But then again, every week is kind of special here. So there you go.
It is for
See ya.
sure. And see you, everybody.
Bye.